So,
That's great. So the next kind of objection we'll look at here is like, what if open theism is too risky? So some may assert, well, if God got all these free creatures and you can't force them to go one way or the other, then it seems like, well, it's just possible maybe his plan fails and everyone just ends up in hell, or most people end up in hell. So how would you respond to this kind of objection that open theism is too risky?
yeah, that's a good objection, or it's a it's one that's good to consider because it's a natural one that comes up here. So what if most or even all of God's creatures decide to rebel against God and to say the whole earth goes to hell in a handbasket, so to speak. If open theism is true, so the objection goes, and then God isn't even able to guarantee that there will be a church, or that the gates of hell won't prevail against it at some point, because everybody's going to just turn away. At least you wouldn't be able to guarantee that, possibly without oppressively intervening to curtail human freedom. And that's a worry. In response, I would say, first of all, this kind of extremely bad outcome, even if possible, is nevertheless extremely unlikely. God's Spirit, as we know, is continually working throughout the world, drawing people unto himself, guiding his church. And we're told in Scripture that the power of God is manifest to everyone through creation. We're told that God speaks to us in our hearts through our conscience. So God is not so silent and so hidden that his influence isn't, kind of always there. And so that creation could go so wildly off course would be kind of really, really unlikely, at least on the large scale. So I would say, also, as the cases such as Noah and Sodom and Gomorrah, and Moses at Sinai, when he sees the Israelites at the bottom of the mountain, and they have built the golden calf, and God's saying, okay, I'm getting angry, and he says, I'm about to destroy these people. I'm just going to start over with you, Moses. And Moses says, well, no, I'd rather you didn't do that, because that would give all the nations of Israel, like Egypt, a way to say that you just brought these people out here just to kill them. That's, let's not do that. And God agrees and says, okay, I'll continue working with them, but they're, we're going to have to punish them pretty severely, and so, wander 40 days, or the 40 years in the wilderness and all that. But or cases, so God will intervene when necessary to stop human evil from becoming too rampant. As he did, like in case of Noah, that all the hearts of people were only evil continually, except for Noah and his family, maybe, and so God just said, okay, I have to reset this experiment. I'm going to wipe out the vast majority of humanity and start with this remnant that has been faithful to me. So God can do that, and has done that sort of thing on, as we're told in Scripture, to keep his overall program on track. He's not going to let things go so off course. We're told, of course, at the final days that things are going to get progressively worse and worse. But that, God's going to hold off, to redeem as much as can be redeemed, but that eventually he's, things are going to get so bad, he's going to just say time's up, and, we're going to have the final judgment. So God's going to accomplish his purpose, We can be confident of that. I have one other point here, I should say. Oh yeah, let's say it says, God is the one who decides how much freedom we have. He can anticipate and plan around every possible decision we could make. So to the extent that there are risks that God is taking in creation, we can be sure that God has weighed those risks. He knows what they are, and he's judged in his infinite wisdom that they are worth taking. The good of creaturely freedom requires some degree of risk on God's part. At least it does if Molinism doesn't work, and I've argued in our last session that it doesn't. Then any kind of creaturely freedom entails some form of risk-taking on God's part. But arguably, such freedom is worth the risk because it makes possible loving two-way relationships among creatures and God, and among creatures and other creatures. So there are goods that would not be possible without taking the risks. And God is smart enough and is in control of the big picture enough that he can manage those risks to an acceptable degree.